What's up, everybody? Welcome back into another edition of SSPN Live. Unfortunately, the Spurs are on a 3-game losing streak, Ethan. But, there's still some positives in there to see. So I'm just going to dish it to you to kind of do a recap of this Denver Nuggets game that happened yesterday. 126 to 101, I believe, was the final score.
Yeah.
I saw both Keldon and Devin did get into double figures. I wasn't able to watch it because my hat. I'll just leave it at that. So, because this is a Spurs
Texas.
show, but it was a great day for me yesterday. But anyways, I saw Devin still on that 25-minute restriction, but still went 4 for 6 from three. Was able to put up 20. Keldon got back to doing Keldon things. Just had an off night the other night, which is eventually going to happen when you're taking the amount of shots that he is. Like, not to compare him to Trae Young, but even Trae Young or whoever these guys, Steph, everybody has a bad shooting night, here and then. So it was good to see him get back on track, 4 for 7 from three. But other than that, I saw Bones Highland went off for the Nuggets on top of Jokic, doing Jokic things, back-to-back MVP. So what was kind of your takeaways? I know you watched the game last night. I know Malachi started as well. It didn't look that great on the box score, but just give me all those different angles. What were your takeaways from the Denver game last night?
The loss could be chalked up to Denver's a way better team, more experienced. And then to make it worse, they were just hitting from everywhere, Jude. I mean, 61%
Like
basically from
Toronto.
the field. Yeah, 52% almost from three-point land. And sure, the Spurs had some defensive lapses, but a lot of that was just really tough shot making from Michael Porter Jr., Bones Highland, Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray early on was getting going, kind of posting up Trey Jones. And then you have a back-to-back MVP in Nikola Jokic, who only shot the ball 10 times, but still made 90% of his shots.
At
And of
21
course,
still.
yeah, being a playmaker, 10 assists, 6 rebounds. I mean, this team is for real this year. I know we've been saying that about Denver the past couple of years, but now they're fully healthy.
Right.
Aaron Gordon's like their fourth option, and he played pretty well last night as well, just being an athletic slasher for the most part, getting boards, offensive
And then you
putbacks.
add in Bones and DeAndre Jordan, and
Yeah,
MPJ is just going to keep getting better and better too at 6'10. So versatile.
exactly. So this was really Denver being a great team, more so than the Spurs being a bad team.
They got Christian Braun off the bench too. Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt you. And
no,
Bruce
you're good.
Brown. I'm forgetting
hmm
about all these people, but Christian Braun didn't have the greatest night in the game against them, but that's a solid pickup for them just as an off-ball player. He was solid at Kansas.
And Contavious Caldwell Pope, who for some reason always gets going against the Spurs. Thankfully, he only had 12 points, but plus 16. Very efficient night, 5 for 6 from him. They're a really good team defensively. Perimeter defenders are just like there's a million of them, and DeAndre Jordan kind of gives them that rim protector that Nikola Jokic
Mhm.
isn't necessarily. But that's enough about Denver. This is about the Spurs. Um, Keldon and Devin played great. I think this is going to be the story of the season. They get about 20, 25 points a game. But we don't have the talent around them enough at this point to beat teams like Denver. We can catch some guys that are sleeping like Philly, like the Minnesota Timberwolves, or who you think are
Early
a
in
little
the
bit
year.
overrated. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get a few more of those wins down the stretch as we continue to build this chemistry and everything gets flowing. Um, but I really think that the biggest thing to take away from this is we really need a playmaker off the bench. Losing Josh Primo was big, and we're not going to get into all of his allegations and whatnot because we're going to let that kind of, you know,
Play out.
finalize before we talk about it. But losing him as a player was huge. Then Blake Wesley showed up for 2 games, played
Looked great.
terrific. Yeah, we were like, okay, maybe we're not going to miss him all that much. Maybe Blake Wesley's a little more NBA ready than we thought. He goes down for 6 to 8 weeks. You mentioned Malachi Branham kind of being in that starting lineup for now. Perhaps he is a little bit better of a playmaker. Maybe when Devin's ready to move into the starting lineup, he can try and fill those shoes next to Josh Richardson. But that's definitely a thing that's missing, and we don't really have a guy that can defend a Bones Highland, a shifty playmaker that's a point guard, a
Off the
natural
bench.
point guard off
6
the
for
bench.
8, dude. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
that was to me the most glaring deficiency in our team. Jakob looked aggressive, so that was nice. Trey Jones had an off game as far as scoring the ball, but when you're being guarded by Jamal Murray, Contavious Caldwell Pope, Bones Highland, they just have
Found a way
a
to get 7 assists too.
yeah, Bruce Brown from time to time. Like he was really the guy they kind of honed in on, as well as Jakob. It felt well, actually not even Jakob, mostly just Trey Jones. And then they were like, okay, if Kelton and Devin can beat us, so be it. But we know the rest of the team isn't. And so when guys like Josh Richardson don't get to double digits, Doug McDermott
Hmm.
only gets 1 point off the bench. It's gonna be a struggle. Yeah. So when our bench guys like that, our role players aren't getting going, aren't hitting open shots, it's gonna be a tough time.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Just kind of talking about this losing skid. What are some other things that you've kind of seen during this? I know the Toronto game; it's kind of tough to evaluate that one, but at least with the Clippers and this Nuggets game, were there any like parallels that you kind of saw while you were watching these two that kind of maybe led to led to the losses?
I think it's just they're forcing our role players to try and beat us. They're like, okay, well, let Devin and Keldon do what they do. They're young, budding stars, but
Yep.
Devin's on a minutes restriction. Keldon's a very solid player, but how much can he do by himself? Can he really beat a loaded Clippers roster where they have such tremendous depth? And then Denver as well, like we saw last night, they have incredible depth. Can Josh Richardson score 20 a night? Can Doug McDermott get to that 15 mark? And if they can't, which they're really not letting them shoot anymore, I don't know if anybody else has noticed, they're really closing out and running them off the 3 point line. And that's really smart, Jude, because eventually the ball's going to get into somebody's hands, like a young guy, and they're
Hmm.
probably going to make a mistake. And that's just young. That's what young people do. I'm not giving them excuses, but when you have an inexperienced team like we do,
Right.
that's been injury plagued, we haven't really had consistency with the rotation. Chemistry has kind of taken a dip since those first couple of wins. It feels
Uh-huh.
like um, turnovers are going to happen. We're not going to get back in transition. Things like that are going to happen. So that feels like the game plan. And then this is also going to be one of those things we continue to harp on: rebounding, out rebounding 47-28 against Denver. That can't happen. We need. I don't know what the answer is, what the solution is. Sohan needs to get better at getting rebounds. He only had two. Jakob should be a consistent 10 rebounds a game. Oh yeah, Langford's defense, Connor. I didn't even think about that. We really could have used Romeo as well. I don't think he would have helped us win necessarily, but it would have been maybe a closer game as far as maybe stopping a Jamal Murray or getting under Contavious Caldwell Pope, even MPJ. You never know. But yeah, our role players need to step up. But I don't even think you can say that because this is just what we are. I don't think like there's a solution to win more
Well,
games.
and while you're talking, I'm kind of thinking about it too. Like it's the same stuff that you were talking about in the Denver game that kind of hurt us in the Clippers game too, because we
Hmm.
don't really have a playmaker off the bench right now. And what was kind of the issue there? Turnovers was an issue, and a lot of that had to come from Jay Rich, right?
Uh-huh.
Who we talked about last time is we kind of feel like is better in that kind of off ball shooter role, which sometimes allows him to play make better. But it's like when it's he can do it better when it's not like his main thing. And I know
Yeah.
that may sound weird, but you get exactly what I'm saying there. Another thing I just wanted to pick your brain on after last night. I know Zach Collins was out, but Isaiah Roby played. What were did they play him at the five? I saw Gorgie played too. How did they kind of run rotations and how did Isaiah Roby look coming back? I know not the craziest, not on the stat sheet, but
Yeah, he looked all right. I mean, they were just playing tremendous defense, and so he didn't really have an opportunity to get going. Like I
I saw he
said,
only shot 1 3.
yeah, they were chasing everybody off the 3 point line pretty well. Plus, our shots just weren't falling in general. I'm not ready to judge him based on this game. I don't think he played poorly. It wasn't a good night to
Did
judge a guy coming back.
did he play at the five though? Like, what did the rotations look like, or did
I
they
don't think
play him
so.
next to
Gorgie came
Gorgie?
in. Gorgie
Okay,
played the five, yeah, for the most part. Or they played him next to Jakob, I believe.
I
The
saw they
fourth quarter. Mhm.
rotated Keita Bates in too. So I was just kind of curious how that bench lineup looked.
It didn't look great. It didn't
Well,
look
I
great.
mean like just straight up the rotations.
Oh, okay.
Like who came in and
It
stuff.
was
That's what I was
Devin.
curious about.
Devin came in. They played Keldon and Devin together
Uh-huh.
more this time than they did
Uh-huh.
against the Clippers. So it was like Devin, Gorgie at the five, Kieta and Doug, and then they would bring in. I can't even remember off the top of my head. I think Roby and Kieta pretty much like swapped.
That's what they've been doing kind of throughout the season with those two
Yeah,
guys. So
yeah, and then Jay Rich, of course, as well.
I think Adrian makes a good point here for those listening on podcast. Adrian
Thousand
says
percent, yeah.
none of the players have team chemistry, so time off seems to be hurting them. If they go too long not playing together, days off hurt. I
Hmm.
completely agree because like it was like night and day when
Yeah,
Devin got hurt, and there were people like after the Toronto game. It's just been like okay, we're trying to get back in that rhythm that we were in before the Toronto game. So I think that's a great point there by Adrian. okay, let's go ahead and look at this slate moving forward because I know it's still going to be tough. But we'll go ahead and preview the week for you guys. So I know we'll have Monday. Listen to this. This is just a great week for the Spurs.
Oh,
You get Denver on Monday, first game against Memphis on Wednesday, and then you get Milwaukee on Friday.
I don't think we're gonna win any of those games, Jude.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be tough. I'll say this. I think if we're going to win one, it'll be Memphis.
We could catch them
But
slipping, maybe.
I don't think that is not me. That's saying if we're gonna win one.
Yeah.
I am still with you. I think it's 0-3. But if we are gonna pull one out, I'm just interested to see. I think that we'll match up better size wise against them this time. Don't get me wrong, Jaren Jackson Jr. If he plays, he's been hurt a lot. He may be completely healthy right
Yeah.
now. But if he's there, I haven't really looked into that. I just know that he's injury prone. But anyways, that's a whole nother topic. Just like Sohan is going to have some rookie moments against Jaren Jackson Jr. for sure. And, obviously he has a height advantage and stuff too, but I think our switchability and stuff, I think we'll be able to match up better with the Grizzlies this season than we did last year. Granted, you can also argue we have less talent on the team this year. So, there's kind of a trade-off there. But I know we're really, I don't want to just say that, but
I'm curious.
we have less
Sorry, yawn.
experience.
Yeah. I'm curious how we're gonna defend Ja, because last year it was very DeJounte versus Ja, and they matched up well, size, physicality, speed, everything. But this year Trey's a little small, and I would say not athletic enough to keep up with Ja. Nobody really is, but you know what I'm saying.
I'm
If
just glad
Devin,
Keldon isn't playing the 4 anymore
yes,
against him. Like, I think that's going to be a big help.
this is my question. Is Devin's fully healthy? You think they let him guard Ja and move Trey to guard like Desmond Bain, or do
I
you?
think they'll switch.
At times, though, they let Sohan guard the primary ball handler.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll put him on. You're asking me this question, and I don't know.
I'm just saying. No, I'm not asking you like what
No,
do you like. It's something to keep your eye on. I'm curious to see how we're gonna defend that because have we
I think that's
guarded
a great
any?
point
Yeah,
because we've definitely mixed it up, and Pop likes to throw stuff out there. So I think and we've been a lot more switchable. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how we play Ja. I think you brought up a great point because I think they may just be like, let's throw Trey Jones on Desmond Bain. Like Desmond Bain can make some plays, but obviously he's more of an off-ball shooter. So it's like,
hmm
that's yes, he's taller than Trey, but that's still like Trey has less of a chance to get beat off the dribble against
yeah,
Desmond Bain, where you might want to put somebody like Devin on him, who just has some extra length and can cause a little bit more problems. I like that idea, but also like you've mentioned, I mean, Sohan, they've had him guard the primary ball handler sometimes. But honestly, with you, I think that Trey Jones will just guard Ja and they'll just switch.
mm.
I really think so,
Be interesting to see.
but I could be proven wrong. It might be
hmm
Sohan out there. Who knows? Maybe they put Keldon on him.
Oh yeah, Romeo might be back by that point too. How long is his injury? Actually, I don't actually
Yeah.
remember.
Well, so Romeo was in a boot in the
So he's
Toronto
probably
game
not
or the
back.
Friday game. It was one of those 2 games this week. So yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit for him. They said it was something with his toe. So what that tells me if he's got a boot on is he's got something close to a what's the word? Close to a broken toe, I would say so.
Mm.
And if it's not, it's kind of like Blake Wesley where it's like a grade 3 toe sprain.
Yeah, toe
where
sprain.
where it's like basically a tear broken or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, he was in a boot, so I was like, damn.
Mm. Well, in other news, Sohan, I thought he played decently well in the past couple games. His stats are never going to blow you away because he's offensively not fine tuned as of yet. Sean Elliott said on the was it which was 2 games ago. Uh,
Was it Toronto or Clippers?
his Clippers game. His Clippers game because I think he missed like 0 for 3 or something like that from 3-point land. They were really giving him open shots, but he was still taking them confidently.
Mhm.
And Sean Elliott was like, "This is going to be his jump shot for the year. I'm not worried about it. It's going to take that first off season
Right.
to really fix that
I heard
jumper."
that too. That was a
And
great
yeah,
point.
that's just something we need to be like cognitive of throughout this year, because he's not going to suddenly go 40% from 3-point land. That's just not his game. But what I do like about Sohan is he's able to create off the dribble as a power forward, which is rare. He and Jakob have pretty good chemistry as far as, playing that two-man game, high-low action. I like to see that. He's making great basketball plays. He just needs to let the game slow down for him, and really, feel more comfortable. But that's going to take at least a season for him, because defensively, he's already there, in my opinion. He's
Mhm.
already an NBA level defender. That's what we drafted him for. He's doing that. So let's just give him time offensively. And then Branham, he's played about as well as you could have expected to, because I very much doubt he or anybody else on the team expected him to play as a
He probably
starter.
thought he was going to be in Austin.
Yeah. And I'm sure everybody else did on the team, the coaching staff, because who knew everything was going to go down with Primo and then everything go down with Blake Wesley. So he's
Right.
been thrust into this position. I know he missed all of his threes last game, but his shot still looks good. He's aggressive. He doesn't look that lost. And defensively, he's giving it everything he has. So I'd look to see him consistently improve as well.
There was another thing. I'm forgetting it right now. I don't know why, but I'm going to go to the comments and see if I can remember it
Hmm.
later. But our man Aaron asked, "Can we slow down the Bucks like we did the Timberwolves?" And I understand where he's coming from, just with the size aspect. But I just think that the Bucks are way better than the Timberwolves, and
Yeah.
so and it's just going to be real tough. Giannis is going to do what he's going to do. Maybe we can slow down some of their other players. But the other thing to keep in mind is Chris Middleton is kind of up in the air too, and he's supposed to come back like not super into the season, like kind of around this time.
Yeah.
He may also not play Friday, but they said he's going to come back, relatively near the beginning of the season, kind of going into the year.
Mm.
So that's another thing, because if he comes back, then it's going to be real tough. And
Yeah.
obviously, he'll still be in rhythm, but he's still Chris Middleton. Like, and
Hmm.
he's in that offense, he's going to shoot the lights out of the ball, and it's Coach Bud. Like, that's the
Yeah.
other thing. He's got the Wheezy plug. He's just going to know all the plays, and that's why he really picked him up.
Yeah.
I'm
It-
just-
It'll be interesting to
no,
watch
but
for
like
sure.
seriously, Coach Bud, he
Yeah.
knows. And not only is he probably, well, he is the most successful kind of Popovich protege that's come out, getting a championship with the Bucks. But
If you
um,
count Steve Kerr, then Steve Kerr
oh,
did.
that's true. That's true. I can't believe that. Yeah,
He was
you
a
really,
player to coach, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. He was. I guess if you were an assistant under Pop,
Yeah.
we'll say Steve's the exception,
Asterisk.
obviously. Right, right. He's kind of been the most successful guy. And so he's going to find some. He is not like, I mean, not to say that other coaches are disrespecting the Spurs, but he is going to really respect what the Spurs have done well this year. And he's like, him and Pop are like this, and he
Yeah.
literally learned from him. So it's like, you give him more talent, he's got the inside scoop. It's going to be tough, kind of like I
Yeah.
said earlier.
For
But
sure.
I like what our man Connor says. Giannis will be the acid test for Sohan.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It'll be, he's going to learn a lot from that game. That's the
Hmm.
thing. Like all these games, they're all these young guys are going to learn a lot of stuff. But going back to Sohan, this is what it was. Said I forgot something. This kind of goes back to Adrian's point. I think that also, like him taking games off, it was like he was getting in rhythm in his jumper, and now it's like he has to get back in rhythm with the
Hmm.
offense and with his jumper. So yeah, what you said about Sean is really key, but I think also him having the flu, plus just all the injuries and stuff like that. I think that's affected that a little bit as well, because it really felt like he was getting in rhythm. I want to say he had 2 straight games back to back where he was 2 for 4 from three.
Hmm. He was 1 for 1 last night,
Oh,
technically.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed. Hopefully, we're starting another
It'll
momentum builder.
right. We'll have to, and really the key point is like Sean said on the broadcast, like he's gonna have to have a full off season to really like correct his shot. You can't do that mid season. So
Yeah, yeah. But his mid-range jumper looks pretty nice. Like he had
Mhm.
a couple turnaround,
That was solid.
fadeaways, and yeah, it looks sweet, looks smooth, look comfortable.
Um, our man Romeo's shot looked like it changed too. I know he made one the other night, and he's going to be injured. And he's also missed some throughout the year. He's only made one throughout the year, but his shot looks different than it did last year. So I don't. That's not me saying Romeo's going to be a sniper or anything, but that's just me saying that like in an off season you can change your form and maybe give yourself a little bit better of a chance
Yeah.
to make some of those shots. Eric Piscina in the chat. We appreciate you, my guy. What is up? Hope you're having a great Sunday night. We were just kind of previewing the slate here. Once again, Denver on Monday, Milwaukee on Friday, and Memphis on Wednesday. Just another tough slate. And then guess who we have on Monday after that? Golden State. And then Portland's had a great start to the year. And you have them again on Tuesday.
Drew Eubanks revenge game.
Oh my gosh.
He about to put Zach on a
Bro.
poster.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, dude, if he posters Zach, I'd be so sad. That was another thing. Okay, so going back to last night's game with Zach's absence, did you kind of see? Okay, which is a good thing because you were talking about rebounding, right? And the thing is, at the beginning of the year, it was like, we need him to be more of a presence rebounding. And then he kind of started to do that. And so it's good to see that, like, with his absence being out, like, you noticed it, because that's just what we want from Zach as in his role off the bench. You just want him to be an impact player, kind of be that mean dude who can be super versatile in a lot of different ways as a big man.
Absolutely.
Interesting question from Connor here. Do you guys think we can trade Jakob for Wiseman? That is a very interesting question, because I feel like Jakob's stock has rose, throughout these first 10 games of the season for the Spurs. I don't think really that it just doesn't feel like you can trade Jakob for a number one pick without giving up something else. I think we could make this move happen for sure, but we'd have to give up probably way too much.
Yeah, I feel like they would want some draft capital, and probably also our two other role players,
like
Doug and Josh Richardson, or
maybe even a Malachi. Like, just
they
throw
might want
in
a young guy.
Piece. Right. But I like the thinking there, because Jakob's trade value is definitely going up. And I know I haven't really been watching Wiseman too much. I think he's looked solid, but I feel like it's kind of hard for him to showcase much on the Warriors. I know a lot of people would say, like, oh, it would make it easier, there's more talent, but like, when you're playing with those type of guys and those type of egos, like, there's only so many shots to go around. Like Clay, Steph and Jordan Poole are going to take like 65% of the shots for them, it feels like. So, and after that point, you've got all the other role players.
Clay, Wiggins.
And they play so much outside. Yeah, not actually retract that statement. Jordan Poole and Steph and Wiggins too with Clay. That'll probably be like 85% of the shots, honestly. But anyways, it's just kind of like in the offense that they play too, where it's so perimeter centric. It's like, really, they need somebody like a Jakob. So I get why Connor was thinking that, for sure.
Yeah, it's like Eric was talking about Basie. He looked really good in his Austin Spurs debut. I wish we would bring him up, especially if Zach's not going to be playing next game. Just throw him in, see what's going to happen. I mean, he's a physical guy. Obviously has some talent. Let him play against the best.
He had 33 and like 14 in the first game. And then last night he had like 20 and 14.
Yeah.
So plus he's like
3 blocks.
Right. So, I mean, 20 and 10 from him every game in the G League so far. So that's something to keep an eye on, especially. I saw Jordan Hall got 5 minutes last night. Was that just the best part of the game?
Best part of the game. Best part of my life. I love watching Jordan Hall play. No, I mean,
oh my gosh. I'm wondering. So that's the reason I brought that up, actually, is because it's like, do you like switch them somehow? Is there a way that we can like cut both of them and like, I mean, I don't know how you would do it, but like basically move Jordan Hall back to a two-way and put Charles Basie on like an NBA contract. The only thing is we already have 3 centers on the NBA contract. So actually, I think that's
there lies the issue, I guess.
And I think, honestly, with the Spurs this year, it's like, why would we move like Basie up like at this point of the season when you can play Isaiah Roby and Gorgie?
Yeah, I think it's just about depth at the guard position, which is hilarious because like 2 years ago we had nothing but guards. We can't find any. So yeah.
Okay. Here's an interesting question from our man Eric. On the real, is there a young piece you would trade for, or just picks at this point?
I don't know. I have to think about that for a second.
Yeah. I feel like if we're going to trade for a young piece, it really has to be like kind of that third cornerstone. If look, there's a lot of basketball to be played, but as of right now, it seems like Devin and Keldon are, 2 guys that we want to run our offense through moving forward, right? As of right
Mhm.
now. Well, who knows with the draft and how the rest of the season plays out. So I feel like if you want to get another young piece, you got to get somebody not necessarily who has to complement them, but you've got to get somebody who's like at their caliber. You know what I mean? To really like build a core around, like to try to start to win some games. Because if you have somebody else that can make shots like them, the Spurs would be even more competitive. They probably would have won the Clippers game. They might have still lost this Denver game, but you kind of get what I'm saying here. Like that would kind of put them over the top in some of these games where you were talking about earlier. Like they have to rely on the bench. Like if the bench has a bad game, it's wraps. Where like if Clay's not shooting well, or even Steph's having an off night, Jordan Poole can go crazy. You see what I'm saying? Like they need somebody else who can, whether that's in the post, it doesn't really matter the position, but somebody else who can get 20 points,
Yeah.
or close to it consistently.
Yeah, I mean, this question's a little confusing because is it just like fantasy world, like any young piece? Because I'll take any young piece, but if this is like that are legitimately available that we
I
could
think
try and
that's
grab,
probably what he's leaning more towards, is something that we could legitimately try to do. And this is
uh,
all fun stuff because the Spurs probably
yeah,
won't make too many trades this year. Or if they do, it's going to be centered around, role players for picks, I'd imagine.
yeah,
Maybe we'll be proven wrong. But yeah, I would say it's probably like one of a more realistic one, which is why this is, I think, kind of an interesting question. It's making my
yeah.
brain work a little bit.
Because like I don't think that there's one available that would be a difference maker, like you're saying, as far as being like a 20 point per game scorer. Like I
Yeah,
see M Az in the comments saying Kuminga for him. Like I would love Kuminga, but there's no way the Warriors would ever part ways with Kuminga. Scotty Barnes is another one. Like, but there's no way that they would ever trade Scotty Barnes.
bull.
Bull bull. I on the
Victor
Magic,
Line.
I would like the guy on the Magic. He'd be a role player, but what's his name? Jonathan Isaac, I think, would be a
Mhm.
great addition. I know he's not necessarily like
The thing
super
is
young.
it's
He's
just
super
so
injury prone.
right, right.
Yeah, but he's somebody we could potentially get that I think would fit our like next
I
to
gotcha.
Trey. Yeah, next to our other guys that is a defensive minded. 4/5 even. He thinks like 6'11", but he can play 3 through 5. And then
Connor
another guy.
says Matisse Thybulle could be a good one.
Yeah, I like Matisse, and he's kind of suffering in Philly right now. I don't think he's getting any minutes. And the other one I thought of was the guy in OKC. They hit that dagger against Houston back a while. Uh,
Hmm. You're
he's a
not talking about
small.
Shea.
No, Lou Dort.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Lou
Just as a
Dort.
role
Lou
player,
Dort's
I
solid.
don't think. Yeah, I don't think there's any superstars or stars that are going to be on the trade market. At least not right now. So
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of like a young player with potential who's not necessarily like a star yet, but you
what's
know,
his name? I mean, he's being played right now, but your boy over in Brooklyn.
oh, Cam Thomas.
Yeah, since Steve
Right. No,
Nash
no,
is
no.
being fired, he's gone off for the past couple
Yeah, and
games.
he's
So
played really well. He's been like, I want to say that it was like since he's been on the floor, he's been plus 39 for the
yeah,
Nets. That's
he's going
actually,
nuts.
there you go. I should have looked at my hat. That would be somebody that I would that I would trade. And we talked about that last time, like trading Jay Rich for him with, a pick attack. Well, no, they're probably going to want picks because he's a young player, but I would actually be willing to give up like one of the picks we've acquired in a draft where we have multiple. So it's not like we're, not going to have any picks for that year, but in some of the draft capital we'd acquired, I wouldn't mind trading Jay Rich for him. But also, I don't want to trade Jay Rich, as I've mentioned many times. I know he's had some struggles in these past couple of games, but I still love what he brings to the table. I think that would be more like we'll evaluate that at the trade deadline. If the
Yeah,
Spurs are really on a losing streak and it's looking like there's no shot at really being competitive, that would be a trade I wouldn't mind, like giving up some draft capital and
yeah,
attaching Jay Rich.
I wouldn't mind that either.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're probably just going to go after draft capital, though, if we want to be honest.
Yeah.
Like the
Right.
team itself.
Right. And that's why you could say maybe there's a chance with Cam Thomas because he's a young player that would kind of fit their mold. But like still, I think mostly they're gonna, like you said, they're gonna go after draft capital. But if they don't, it would be a young piece, you'd think, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Let's see what Aaron has to say. Opinion: should we go for a point guard or a center as a young piece / free agent, not going through the draft?
Mm.
Hmm.
I was
The
thinking about this earlier today. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just gonna say that like the interesting part about this is like One, the Spurs like to use all their draft picks. Like that's the problem. They like to go through the draft. Um,
Mhm.
so in my opinion, I would say I think I would like to go a little bit more free agency just from what I've seen from Devin and Keldon. I still want to have at least like one pick in each round, but if we have like multiple picks in, the first round or the second round, maybe you could, trade out of one of those for even more draft capital down the line and go for, a piece in free agency. But the thing is, it's interesting because like 2 years ago, they did get Zach Collins and Doug McDermott. You know what I mean? And obviously, that's not necessarily like a superstar or anything. But I think what Aaron's talking about in this question wouldn't be necessarily like a superstar. Maybe center this year if you want to move off of Jakob and try to upgrade. But I feel like Jakob's just fitting this system so well that that's not something they necessarily want to do. And then whenever it comes to point guard, you got to feel like Blake Wesley is next up, right? Which would tell me that they would probably just draft another young player to be the third stringer, or you could bring in a vet. But at the same time, that's not like really a big splash, which is what I feel like kind of Aaron is asking about a little bit more.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that, Ethan?
I was just thinking about this earlier today as far as potential stars that will eventually be free agents that I could see them moving to a team like San Antonio, based on their personality
Mhm.
and maybe they're a
Right.
third option or second option right now. They're looking to kind of, open their wings and be that number one guy. The first guy I thought of who's not going to be actually available till
That's a good point, Eric.
2026. That's true. It's hard. He's not going to be available till 2026 is Bam Adebayo. Um,
Interesting.
I would love to bring him in as our starting center. I think he would be terrific, be a star for us because in Miami, I
He
don't
could
think
play with
personally,
our role too, like with
I
the
agree.
space and pace we've been playing with.
He's a defensive minded center. I think he's got a much better offensive game than how it's being used in Miami currently. I'd love to see him on our team, but again, not available till 2026. I think it will really come down to who we select in this upcoming draft. Because if we are as bad as most people think we're going to be by the time the season ends, we're going to have a top 5 pick, probably even top 3. And if we draft Victor Wembanyama, that means he'll be looking for a point guard, possibly to fill out the depth in free agency. And if we draft Scoot Henderson, we'll probably be looking for a big man come free agency time, especially if Jakob decides to leave because his contract is expiring. So it really
Yeah.
comes down to what the front office wants to do with our next lottery pick, if it is a lottery pick, which pretty much everybody in the world thinks it will be.
That's another thing. Just I want to get to some other comments because MEZ had some interesting names also that I saw in there that I didn't think of. But before we get to that, I feel like these last 3 games have kind of toned us down a little bit. Like not to say that we were out here like the Spurs are going to win the chip or anything, but for a second there when they were 5-2, I think me and you even
It
you were
looked like
talking
we,
about
yeah,
it. You were like, I'm starting to question like if this losing is going to continue, right? But I
I was
think
wrong.
these last 3 games, yeah, no, right. But I think everybody was a little bit, right? And
Yeah.
I think that still what we were talking about earlier, I think at the end of the day, these teams have more talent for sure. But also, I think that the rhythm thing that Adrian talked about a little bit earlier is something that plays a part as well too. Like if none of these injuries happen, if the whole Primo thing doesn't go down, not to say that they're not going to be 5-5, but maybe they're like 6-4 or 7-3 or something. I still think that's a tough ask against the teams you play, but I think if none of that stuff happens, I think that genuinely the Clippers and the Toronto game go very differently. But another thing that MEZ mentioned earlier, this is an interesting name, Terrence Mann.
Mm.
That's something I really like. He's kind of a modern, like he can kind of play the 1 through 3. He had to play make last year. He came into the league as kind of more of a shooting guard, but he had to play make for the Clippers a little bit last year. And he's 6'5", physical, so he can kind of still play that off ball role at the 3. And he's got that Florida State lineage, so he would have that. I believe him and Devin played together when they were in college. Even if they didn't, a lot of those Florida State guys kind of have that same, mentality and drive when they play. I like a lot of things that these, if you go look at Florida State players around the league, those dudes are tough, good players, whether it's Patrick Williams, Devin, Terrence Mann, a lot of these young guys that they play real physical and a lot of them, they're good shooters too. So, and they usually play great defense. Like at minimum, they're solid 3-and-D guys. So you love to see that. I think that's that would be one that I think would, honestly, that might be a little bit more gettable even than like Cam Thomas.
Yeah, if they would take Doug and Jay Rich probably straight up, I think I would take that deal. I don't know why they would, because I think they do
Yeah.
like Terrence Mann. But if they're just looking for more veteran-minded guys that can help them push in the playoffs this year, maybe they'd be willing. But definitely a solid player. Can we sign Miles Bridges? No, we're not going to sign Miles.
Oh my gosh. D'Lo, I see you're in here talking about trading for Simmons, and I want to say that you're talking about Ben Simmons.
Yeah, yeah, it
And
is.
I know you're saying here, my man, don't let recency bias cloud your judgment, guys. Simmons for the low would be a great move right now. I just completely disagree. You see my hat. I'm an LSU fan. I watched him in college. I'm not a believer in Ben Simmons. I'm just not. And I feel like his body language and everything. We talked about this last time. Like, I feel like everything about his personality and the way he acted. Somebody in the comments said it last time. Like, it's kind of like the anti-Spur. I understand what you're saying. He's still super young, has a lot of potential, and I know that the Spurs are kind of like they're in the position where they could take him on. But I just don't think even like Pop's gonna fix him. I just really think that he is I think he's going to get bounced around, and I don't know how much longer he's going to be in the league if he keeps playing the way he does. And I know that Brooklyn is a crap show, but like he didn't play for like 2 years, right? Or was it just a year?
He didn't play for an entire year,
Right. And then
and yeah,
and that was in the aftermath of his abysmal playoff performance
collapse.
where he didn't like I watched that live too. Like I was with friends watching that and we were just like and I have another friend and he's like an Auburn fan. So we talk about SEC stuff sometimes, even basketball, right? And he was just like, talking about Ben Simmons. And I've said this so many times on SSPN, not to go on a Ben Simmons rant, but like it we don't own him. Like LSU fans are like, don't talk about him. He's the bad memory. Like he's the bad number one prospect. Like I don't Shaq and Pete Maravich went here and Cam Thomas did too, and Darius Days. Darius Days has a more positive impact on the LSU basketball program than Ben Simmons. That is what I will tell you. And so,
And Measy
yeah,
Ben Simmons was never an MVP candidate.
yeah,
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure. Maybe I'm wrong. If you can find an article that shows that he was, I mean, he never averaged more than I don't think 15 points a
I
game.
don't know if
He was he was putting up
if
less than
you
Dejounte numbers. I know
I don't
that.
I don't think that he will be like I don't remember that, but
His
if
ceiling used to be MVP. People
right,
thought
his
that he was
ceiling,
going to
yeah, as a
be
number
a
one pick,
Magic Johnson, but
yeah.
hasn't worked out yet.
I'm just
I'm a
not the
little
biggest fan
more
of that.
I'm a little more of a believer in Ben Simmons.
It's because you
His
you haven't watched him
I
like
have
I have.
I apparently I don't have any personal
I'm
relationship
playing.
at all with
Anyways,
but
that was more of a
he
joke.
his game, I've always liked his game. Even in Philly, I remember when he dropped 40 on the Spurs when Joel Embiid was hurt. I've always thought that he's a good player. It's just his personality that is anti-Spur. If he had the personality of a Jay Rich, he'd be the perfect Spur. But because of his mental collapse and from all accounts saying that he was a diva in Philly, I just don't think Pop wants to deal with it. Um, but still, logically, if I'm the GM for the Spurs and it's just Jay Rich and Doug McDermott, and that's all it's going to take for me to get Ben Simmons, and we're not going to win this season, sure, why not? Because even if he sits out for the entire year because he's hurt, we're just going to be even worse. And that just tells me that we're all in on Team Tank and we'll get the number one pick possibly. So I'm not against it necessarily, but I do understand where you're coming from and where a lot of fans would be very upset if we did trade for him, especially if we're going to give up two guys that want to be in San Antonio for a guy
And
who,
can shoot.
yeah, and that can shoot, for a guy that might be something good, but will more than likely not want to be in San Antonio. So
Yeah, but
I see
I
both.
yes, I see. That's what I want to say too. Like I see what you're saying because there's a chance like maybe he gets in like a non like terrible situation. Obviously, there's
Yeah.
some toxicity in Philly, but the other thing that I want to remember too, like Brett Brown was in Philly, and like
Yeah.
didn't him and Ben Simmons not have the best relationship?
I think that I don't think that they did. I remember listening to
So that's what I'm saying too.
The JJ Redick
But it
podcast.
is a mental thing. I will say that he does have all the talent. Sorry to interrupt you,
Yes.
but I
No,
want
you're
to.
good.
I agree with them easy here. Like it is a mental thing. I will say that it's that
1000%.
he definitely has a lot of natural talent. Um, but What I would say here, D'Lo, because you're saying, couldn't hurt, especially because we lost our point guard of the future. I would say that's now Blake. And uh, I know that Ben Simmons was the number one pick, and y'all may call me crazy, but I'd rather just roll with Blake Wesley. Like,
Yeah.
if and then if we suck, just like get Scoot or Eamon Thompson, like, or Sir Thompson. There's a lot of guards in this draft too,
Yeah.
So
As far as his relationship with Brett Brown, the only thing I know is I listen to the JJ Redick podcast a lot, and
mhm.
when he had Jimmy Butler on, Jimmy and JJ talked about how they would have team meetings, and the whole meeting would be about Ben, and Ben would be there. It'd be Jimmy, Ben, Joel, and JJ pretty much, and like they'd be watching tape, and it would be a tape full of Ben Simmons messing up or not doing what he was supposed to do, but nobody would say a word because they were all scared of they were babying Ben Simmons basically. So nobody was calling him out. And Jimmy was talking to JJ like, why? Because why would on earth would I ever go to one of those meetings again if we're not going to confront the issue and just baby him? Like that's basically what he was
Well,
saying.
it's like also it's film review. Like everybody gets called out in film review. That's how you get better. I don't like
Yeah,
why are they babying him in the first place? And this is the type of conversation where it's like we're having this conversation about him. I don't think he's going to do well in San Antonio cuz Pop's never going to do that stuff. He's going to get called out real quick. Well, no, and if he doesn't go back for a ball like we saw with Lucas Samanich, or if you don't go back on defense and like do some of the stuff that he's been doing on film for the past times that we've seen him on the court, like you get cut.
yeah, it's high risk. It's one of those. It's a stock that if you buy it, you're either going to be so happy in a year or you're going to lose your wallet. Like you're like, oh god, why on earth would I do that? It's such a horrible thing. That I can't believe we did that.
But for D'Lo's argument, Mezy does say he played his best under Brett
He
Brown.
did.
So
He
there you
definitely
go.
did.
That is a connection there. And I do like I said, it's all just like the mental stuff and the attitude stuff because
Yes.
also he's from Australia. Like the Spurs have a lineage there. Matt Nielsen, one of our assistant coaches, is the national, or he was the national. I believe he might still be the national coach for Australia in the
Yep.
Olympics. So yeah. Aaron has a different view. He says that Aldridge now would be better for San Antonio than Simmons now. Oh,
Oh man.
that's a good one, Aaron. That's a good one.
But I do get the argument that if you bring him
Right.
here, there's no media really. He's not going to be,
It would be the
belligered for not
least
shooting.
toxic place he's been in.
Yes, and it would be completely open. Everybody on our team, pretty much except for Sohan, is a knockdown shooter at this point. So just space the floor for him. We don't have a big that's going to dominate the post like Embiid. KD doesn't need to take 20 shots. Maybe it would work, logically, but we're still thinking about it from basketball perspective. When the
Right.
issue is not basketball,
Right.
it's his mentality and
Yeah.
his mental health. So,
But our man, the cold chai latte, says that this is Devin Vassell's team.
mm, could be.
He's looked really good in these
He
last two
has.
games. I mean, he was the one who said we hooping this year,
That's
and
right.
he, like, the way I've said this a million times, but I'll say it again. The way he's been taking people off the dribble this year, the confidence that he has now, the handles he has now. I mean, he's playing like he's determined. He's got his bag has increased significantly. He is much more than he is now a creator and not just a 3-and-D, solid young guy.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah. Well, any final comments on this SSPN live, Ethan? Any other stuff you want to talk about?
It's going to be a rough week. Just keep your nose
Okay.
down and look for the improvements because I'm
Hey,
sure they are there.
we'll do it live. Usually we do this afterwards, but we'll do it for the people. And I didn't even think about this. We
Mm.
should have done this always. What games are we going to be able to do post games for?
Monday, I can do Monday
Okay,
tomorrow.
I can do tomorrow as well.
What's the next one? Wednesday?
hmm
I can do Wednesday.
Okay, I can do Wednesday too. Wait, but did we not want to do the Monday one because it's 8:30 and you got to go to work?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
we'll do
not
that.
gonna do
That's
Monday.
that's why we're doing this live
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah,
So you want to do Wednesday and Friday?
yeah. I can do that.
Okay,
Oh
cool.
wait, Friday?
You got stuff going on.
Probably.
Okay.
I think I
Well,
have family coming in.
we'll fit a live in at some point, whether it's this time next week or something. But y'all be in the post game on Wednesday for sure. That's the one that I think I think you would agree, Ethan. That's the one we probably have the best chance to win. So I guess that kind of works out, but it'll probably still be an L, unfortunately. Hopefully, Jaw doesn't go too crazy, and we can see some good things from the young guys in that one.
Okay, I agree. Sorry, I just got a text from somebody.
You're
Yes,
good.
100%.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Okay. What was I gonna say? I don't know why. I thought I saw something in the comment. I don't know what this means, Adrian, but I'm gonna put you up here. Devin Hoopin, Team Ant.
Ain't.
Ain't or Team Ant.
Team Ant.
Team Ant as in freaking Anthony Edwards.
Mm.
Private Unknown says we have 2 killer wings, which is really good. You love to see what Keldon and Devin have seen. Clippers had that dream once.
That's so true.
Yo, let's go, Private. Hey, at the end of the day, Kawhi was scared last week. No matter what he says, he didn't want to come to San Antonio and play Keldon and Devin. It doesn't matter that they won. He was scared. And Paul George is having to carry him. So
I feel so bad for Paul George. I like Paul
I
George.
know. No, Michelle Beadle was talking about that on the broadcast. Okay, final note. No, we'll wrap this thing up.
Okay.
Michelle Beadle was talking about this on the broadcast. She was like, imagine you're Paul George. You're saying all the right things. I'm going to be number 2. I'm coming here with Kawhi. He just want to chip with the freaking Raptors basically by himself. That's a little bit of an exaggeration. He definitely had some pieces, but they don't win that championship or even get close to contending without him. And so, like, you know, like when you came in, like I thought the Clippers were going to be really good too. I was like, and they've wanted to play together forever. And it's just still, man, he doesn't want to get on the court. I don't know what it is.
He's hurt.
Yeah. Just only wants to play in the playoffs. Don't forget to like and subscribe, y'all, if y'all enjoyed the SSPN content. And, you know, if you don't like Kawhi Leonard because he did the Spurs dirty, go ahead and follow us on Twitter at SSPN on YT. You can watch the show there at Jude McLaren, at Ethan_Quintero to stay updated with all the show's news, even if it's 15 minutes before you go live. That's what I did today. Sometimes that's how it works out, but stay tuned, put the notice on, and you'll see all that stuff. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching SSPN. We'll catch y'all in the next one.